All right, welcome to the Entrepreneur's Journey. I'm Rob Kepke. I'm here with Tim Howard of Senior Advisors Plus. How we doing, Tim?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, of course.
This is a cool setup.
Now, I'm pretty excited to talk to you. So let's give a little background and context to start. I'm going to have you go ahead and just kind of explain in a couple sentences your business, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you are kind of in this entrepreneur's journey.
Yeah, thanks. So my name's Tim Howard, and I started a company called Senior Advisors Plus, and we help families create a care strategy around their aging loved ones. So it could be helping them find a caregiver, it could be helping them find a senior living community, but what we're trying to do is merge their financial and healthcare considerations to help them choose a path forward. I think right now where I am in this journey is still very early. This industry that I'm in is all about developing relationships with people, and you may know that that doesn't happen overnight. Additionally, I've been trying to find my path on which relationships I want to focus on. And about 2 months ago, I sort of solidified who I want to focus on, and that is hospital case managers and skilled nursing facility case managers. So for those past 2 months, I've really been trying to get to know them, not really ask them for business in an aggressive way, but just sort of familiarize myself with their facilities, the hospitals, and let them know that my services are available to help them with their discharge needs. So very early on in the process, I've heard from somebody before that it takes an average of 9 visits before you get business from them. And from each one of my, core referral sources, I've probably visited them about 4 or 5 times now. Okay. So I'm not really getting any referral flow from them, but ancillarily I'm getting them from other places. But it's the gravy is really with the hospitals and the skilled nursing facilities.
All right, awesome. So we're going to dive back into your business and kind of where you're at and what's been working, what hasn't in a little bit. But where I'd like to start, and we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, how, I think it's very important for, entrepreneurs. It's always good to have somebody who's slightly ahead of you to learn from, and how, a lot of times fear keeps people from making that plunge, right? And fear in, is this right for me? What is my background? Do I have an entrepreneur's background? And I think we both know that that's not really a thing. Mm-hmm. One could argue one way or the other. So where I'd like to start is back in your childhood, right? So tell me a story that was kind of looking back, maybe at the time you didn't realize, but was a foreshadowing for you becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I think that I have always taken an active role in personal development, and I think that's what an entrepreneur should encompass. And I think really with my liking towards sports, my family, they never really pressured me to get better at anything. They didn't pressure me to pursue a single sport. I just wanted to get good at them. I don't know why, but I guess the idea of training and practicing and then bringing that onto the field was really exciting for me. So I was sort of managing this portfolio of skills that I was, boosting my confidence. And I guess that led to a self-betterment type of mentality. And from there, every day, I always want to just try and be the best that I can be. Mm-hmm. And looking at entrepreneurship versus working for somebody else, or maybe following if we're talking about entrepreneurship, we're thinking about creating something new, exploring that creativity side of myself. Mm-hmm. That to me is bringing out the best person in me. Rather than working for somebody else, you're sort of always subject to their opinions, and while you do have some control over that, when you're working for somebody else, they're coming they're managing you with a whole different set of life experiences that really shape their values, possibly different than yours. I mean, even just on a very subtle level, it could be very different than yours. So if your success is wedded based on their opinion, it's going to be very it's going to be very difficult for you to have that perfect relationship where two people come together like that and they respect your ideas exactly how you respect yours. So going back to it, I mean, just trying to be the best person that I could be is really kind of what I think foreshadowed my entrepreneurship career.
Were you a rebel child?
Very much so.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, my teachers from second grade to high school were calling my mom, saying Tim's out of control. I mean, you could say, like, class clown would be the way that very few people, well, I mean, you know, the way I guess my teachers would describe me. Yeah, I was very disruptive. I definitely wanted, I guess, a lot of the attention of the class. I wanted to control the situations, and I didn't like a lot of people telling me like how to act.
Is it because you thought you knew better, or kind of like what, looking back and like what was that thought process behind it, if there was one, or if you're just being like a jackass kid?
I mean, it is fun to tick people off sometimes. Yeah. I mean, I was definitely, you know, at tussles with my sister, and we used to fight all the time, not physically, just like engage. Yeah. I think that it's just about exploring myself, other people, you know, seeing like what people's tipping points are. I know that just sounds ridiculous, but, you know, trying to win over a crowd, what it takes to make somebody laugh. I mean, really, I was kind of lucky to have that sort of mentality, I think, to be able to explore what it means to be human at a very early age, like what it means to make somebody mad and what it means to make somebody happy. I mean, I still mismanage that skill sometimes and make people mad when I don't want to make them mad. Yeah. But I think it's just all about finding your creativity so that you enter into this, I mean, in psychology, they call it like a flow state. Right. Really just having fun, exerting as little energy as possible throughout the day so that you have energy to put towards things that take that, you know, engaged mindset. I think just being fun is a way of making maybe things that aren't fun go by quickly and at the same time be pretty productive. Because, you know, while I was a class clown, I was a very good student. Yeah. I was very, you know, I knew how to study at home and all that stuff. But throughout the school day, I wanted to have fun. So do you think
how did your parents foster or not foster that environment? Or I guess what influence did they have on kind of this exploration, creativity, allowing you to push boundaries? Was that something they frowned upon, something they embraced, or something they tried to push you kind of in the middle somewhere?
Looking back on it, they may have a different answer for you than me. Yeah. But to me, looking back on it, it didn't seem like they condemned it that much. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yes, they did. They were saying like, you need to respect your teachers. You need to be nice. Nobody wants your kid to be an asshole, right? Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, there were times when I said things that were definitely over the line. And I think, you know, once somebody called me out for saying it, we were all on the same page, including myself, that was the wrong thing to say. Yeah. And there's a point at which joking goes too far. And, you know, while that lesson is, I mean, I've learned that lesson several times over. And now, I mean, I think that I've got a better idea on what to say when. I think that my parents were really supportive of me making mistakes and learning from them. Yeah. I think that they saw that. So I don't think that they were there to really jump on me after I knew I already messed up. I think that, you know, they wanted me to maintain a positive outlook on life. They knew I felt hurt, And they could see that
Yeah.
based on how I reacted, apologized to the teachers, apologized to whoever I hurt. And so I think that they let the natural efficiency of the market kind of play out, you
Yeah.
know, let the
Awesome.
repercussions really direct my behavior from there on.
Nice. So we've kind of established you have a little bit of a rebel streak, which is interesting to me, you know, because I've known you for a few months now, right? And you're somewhat quiet, reserved a little bit is how somebody would describe you.
Yeah.
But I guess there's a lot going on under the hood that we...
Yeah, there's a
It's good to know.
there's a whole nother world out there. Yep, that's exactly right.
So then you kind of had this, you know, rebel streak, not even rebel streak, but more of this... Oh, boy.
Got a guest speaker.
Yeah, hey.
She liked it. She likes the rebel.
So you sorry, that was my cat getting into the shot, so just letting everyone know what that interruption was. So you were pushing boundaries from a fairly young age, right? And that seems to be a common theme. Do you, looking back, see or think of any kind of like defining moments where that energy and that pushing boundaries and creativity was when you knew, okay, let me channel this into something productive like becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've always had an adversity towards, what's the right word? Leadership, authority, adversity towards authority.
Yeah.
And so when I knew that, you know, I really couldn't work under someone that well, I knew that I needed to start taking notes on how to become an entrepreneur, how people think, how to do a lot of different things. I think early on in my childhood, you know, high school, I mean, even earlier than that, middle school, I had always had the idea that, you know, I kind of wanted to do something on my own, but not really what. I think that, I mean, we can talk about that later. I think that was a misstep on my behalf, not really having a good plan. But however, just the mindset that I didn't want to work under somebody because I wasn't going to be all that I wanted to be. I mean, like, I have my own idea on the skills that I want to develop. You know, I want to develop really strong social skills. I want to be a really great writer. I want to be really good at math, and I want to make deals and all this stuff. Working under someone, you just can't really get access to all those things in the same proportion that you envision that you want them.
Yeah.
So doing the entrepreneur thing is a way to really explore myself and not have to hold back and to be that all I can be. So I think that just from an early on, you know, I took a lot of psychology courses in college. I think that those were some of the best courses. They can mess you up. I mean, they can make you read way too far into things, but they can also help you see what's real and what's kind of fake. And, you know, I just credit, you know, my teachers in those courses. I also credit my teachers in more of the hard skilled courses, the finance courses. And I think along the way, I chose to have mentors. I've never really told them that they were my mentor, but I picked them out for some reason. Early on in my career, I was trying to establish a skill, a very technical skill, and I thought I could do that through knowing numbers well and knowing how to model them up in like an Excel sheet and really like create a story with them. So a lot of my mentors early on were sort of the numbers, quieter type people.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until my first job where I was a financial analyst that the importance of following the numbers and reading them and being able to organize them in a certain way was actually, it was moving out of my focus, and it was really learning about the people and how to sell and how to lead an idea. Even though I was in a career where the people that excelled were really good at, you know, organizing the numbers, but that was really just 20% of the role.
Yeah.
80% of the role was how to deal with people. Even though we were financial analysts, I mean,
Yeah.
that it was so counterintuitive, and I was blindsided by how important that was. So, my mentors from there have changed.
It's wild you bring that up because I've had conversations with Nick, who's behind the camera right now. What's up, Nick? So we had these conversations about how the skills that you acquire to become a great practitioner are not the skill set that you need to become an entrepreneur or build something else outside of that, right? And I think it's common, kind of what you've done and realized is you acquire a skill set, and then like a hard skill set too, right? And then you realize like, oh, I need to go more over the soft side, and you start bouncing back and forth. And I think that's a common thing amongst entrepreneurs is to pick up a skill set, a problem arises, you jump over to the next, pick up that skill set, jump over to the next thing, pick up that skill set. And I really truly believe, and again, kind of seeing this in your journey, is that what starts to differentiate just a very good practitioner from making that leap to an entrepreneur. So it's very interesting you brought that up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the technical skills were necessary for my career. I mean, I create my own contracts. I do my own analysis on our clients who are looking for a community but are not sure what they can afford. I mean, there's some like base hard skills there that I need. But now that I'm comfortable with creating those things, the soft skills, and gosh, it's the hardest part, is developing those. I mean, it is. I see some people, like I'll follow Twitter accounts and I'll see them and they just create content all the time where they're talking. And you know what? What they have to say is really not all that impressive. But the way they say it, it just makes it so engaging. And these people have millions of followers. And I'm thinking, that's the missing ingredient that I'm missing. And just as a side note, I mean, that's imperative skill because speaking and engaging with people, because look, we're all on our phones every day and we're searching Twitter and we're seeing people talk and we're mesmerized by these like really high profile people. Meanwhile, the junior entrepreneur has got to go out and capture someone else's attention, in a sense, kind of competing with that skill level. Yeah. So I'm trying to develop that, one, so that I can engage the people that I want to do business with and that they're seeing me and they feel comfortable with the service that I'm offering. Look, I can tell them I've got the experience, the really nitty-gritty financial experience that has a lot of diligence involved into it. I can tell them I've done that. It doesn't matter. It's the way I say it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like before you can sell or before you can teach, you have to get attention. Right?
Yeah.
And getting attention in a world that there are more channels than ever for people to pay attention to. It's very hard to snap them and get somebody to pay time to listen to you.
Luckily, in my career, it's all about showing up. Yeah. Not all about it, but a big part is getting their attention by just standing right in front of them. So I got that going for me.
Nice.
But it's always beneficial. I mean, if there's only so many times you can go stand in front of somebody and capture their attention, at some point you've got to start to develop a relationship, and they've got to see who the true you is, and so you want to be on your A game there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So a lot of good threads that came out of there. So I was trying to decide which way I wanted to go with it.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, so your father was an entrepreneur.
Yep.
Is an entrepreneur still?
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about how that influenced you and your journey, and did you play a role in his business, etc.?
Yeah, sure. I'd say that overall I did not play a role in his business.
Sorry, let me take a step back. What is his business?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. So he does like a drug and alcohol testing, and then he also so he gathers the samples for people that are maybe being prescribed opioids or are applying to become like a trucker for a VDOT or something of that nature. And he gathers the samples and then he also tests them in a lab. Okay. It's sort of a cool industry because it's got a really great societal impact. Because he's helped managing sort of this opioid epidemic, or at least like creating boundaries for the people that are being prescribed opioids. So I think that his the money is the money, I guess, is nice to him, or the freedom is nice to him.
Yeah.
But what's more important, I think, to him is that he's serving a societal need that is fulfilling. And to see him pursue that passion and to see how he's evolved from it has been very inspiring. I mean, he has worked for somebody before, and I've seen him during that phase of his life, but I've also seen him after he started a business, and it's two different people. I mean, it's really cool how he's blossomed into this person that is trying to be all that he can be. A lot of people thought he was kind of crazy for doing this because he's like late stage career, and
how old was he when he started it?
Probably low 50s.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Yeah, so he had a lot of time to develop. Really, he had a lot of time to develop the soft skills.
Yeah,
I mean, the career that he had before he went out and did his business, he was very successful at.
Yeah.
So he kind of got that feedback that, look, I have the skills to be able to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Why not leverage that and do something on my own? And that's kind of, I think, where his mentality was. Plus, he had both the kids out of the house.
Nice.
Yeah. So the college was paid for, kind of thing. He did pay for my college, but college was paid for, and the risk was low. I mean, basically, it was his retirement that he was gambling.
This was like
with.
Act 2, right, in his career. Yeah.
Right. So, but I commend him for it because, look, as you get to that late stage in your career, I've seen it a lot just by working in the senior care industry. I mean, people are asked to leave from their jobs a lot of times, and they may not want to, or it's, premature or whatever. And by being your own boss, you can really, hopefully you can ride that as far as you want to, as long as the economic factors are in your favor.
Yeah.
I think that had something to do with why he went out and worked on his own. Also, the freedom, the time he wanted to spend, like learning these new skills. That impact it had on me, just seeing him balloon and become this really cool person. I mean, he was great before, but really, I mean, he came out and blossomed.
Yeah.
The other influence that he had on me is he showed me what it's like to live a plan for 3 years. I mean, everyone knows that, not everyone, but a lot of people know that when you start a business, like the first kind of 3 years are tough.
Yeah.
And you basically have to kind of put money aside, and you have to allocate a budget each month. And you don't go over that budget, and you know that if I stick within that budget, I'm going to have X amount of months to try and get this thing off the ground.
Yeah.
I think really that was the most important mindset that he taught me during his entrepreneurship, because I had saved up money in my previous 2 jobs and I was ready to do something, but I'm not a spender.
Right.
And that was something really hard for me to overcome getting into entrepreneurship, is that you've got to spend money to really launch yourself. So really just taking a systematic approach and saying, I'm going to keep my budget within $3,000 each month, and I'm not going to go over it. And if I keep it there, then I can make it last for, X amount of months. That mentality is really hard to have.
Yeah.
Because you're spending money and people are wedded to it. And I guess how I've gotten over it is really just trying to live a different mentality. And I think a lot about how a Buddhist would approach it. And they're just not attached to anything. So what if I spend all this money? Like, really, like, what does it's been sitting in this account for a long time. Why not take this risk and learn something about myself, learn something about society, and become detached from it and just experience life, experience these moments just for the benefit of experiencing it? That was a mentality that I needed to try and hop into, or at least that's what I thought I needed to hop into, because otherwise I wasn't going to part with the money that I've saved.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. So I guess kind of takeaways from that, there, the discipline instilled watching him do it, and you took the discipline of living to a budget, maintaining a lifestyle, and planning for the long game as being very crucial for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, very much so.
And then also you mentioned the transformation you saw him undergo as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All right. So what do you think is, or what potential does entrepreneurship have to change a person, either for good or for bad?
Yes, well, I'm still in the part of my journey early on where it's definitely changing me for the good, but I've seen it change other people for the good in the long run as well. And I really think it does because, look, I studied a few psychology courses in college, and there's this one experiment that I love to cite. If you've hung around me for any period of time, you've probably heard me talk about this, but it's called the Milgram's shock experiment. And what Milgram tried to study was participants' behavior when pressured to do something. Mm-hmm. So the experiment is organized such that you've got a participant who is being studied, and they're administering a shock to somebody who's answering a question incorrectly. Then you have a researcher that is actually asking the question. The only person being studied in this experiment is the person that's administering the shock.
Yep.
And so the researcher asks a question, and the participant or the person answering the question purposefully gets it wrong. And then the person that's being studied is told to shock the person that answered the question incorrectly. And they go through several questions, and the person's getting it wrong. And each time the researcher administers this shock, at least that's what they think it is, the person who's being shocked's reaction is showing a little bit more agony each time. And more often than not, what they found is that even though the person getting shocked is in agonizing pain, the person giving the shock is still giving it when told to give it. Mm-hmm. They're hesitant, but they'll give it. And what that experiment showed Milgram is that people behave according to their influences, according to their affordances. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that good people can do bad things if their affordances are structured in a way for them to do bad things. So if you're incentivized to make money doing bad things, then you are going to likely make money doing bad things, or however your affordances work, if you're incentivized to make money or not. Well, what that means to me to be an entrepreneur is that, look, entrepreneurship is the ultimate arena to better your skills. I mean, all the affordances in entrepreneurship are telling you to get better because you've got to prove yourself to make a living. And I think that that's way different by working under somebody else, because they may not want you to develop in a way that means that you can be all that you can be. I mean, they may want you, your superiors may want you to sort of fill this role and fill this role only. In entrepreneurship, you've got so many things that you need to develop your skills doing that you're incentivized based on your affordances to get better at them. So I think that in the short run, entrepreneurship just really helps people become a much better version of themselves. In the long run, it can corrupt them. I mean, if they are successful, maybe they use their power for bad. Maybe their morals kind of slip. I'm not there yet in my journey, but I think that in the short run, it's very powerful because, like I said, the affordances just set you up to be a better version of yourself.
So that's interesting. So entrepreneurship in itself, I guess it's more about the affordances, right, is what you're saying here. Mm-hmm. I like to think that in a world that is diminishing in trust overall, right? With this, like fake news going around, like it's hard. People are more skeptical than ever. But if you can kind of break through that and develop this innate trust with people, having a long-term vision that that's going to be successful, I think that is, in my mind, what starts pushing you towards changing for the better. And, you had mentioned like long-term. And again, what's interesting about that to me, and that has the potential for negative consequences, is that it seems like it'll always catch up to you, right? WeWork, as an example. Now, granted, this dude is walking away with like $1.7 billion, but legacy-wise, right, it's a pretty tarnished legacy. And I guess it just depends on the type of person you are.
What's his story? So what's the story?
Basically, they just had I wouldn't say toxic culture at WeWork, but he was pushing a story that was different than he was out storytelling the math, right? They were valuing the company at 40 billion, 50 billion, whatever. In reality, the company's probably worth 7 billion, 8 billion, 9 billion, 10 billion, something in that range. And they just had a bunch of other problems internally as well. But it was this. There was money being lended. There was shady deals going on. Him buying leases and then leasing back to the WeWork Inc. from his LLC. So there were shady things going on that, looking in, it's kind of like, okay, you can see some corrupt motivation of sorts here. But again, long term, and I guess it just depends on the influences, but like long term, he's got money, he's good, right?
Yeah.
But legacy is going to be tarnished, right? And I guess it just kind of depends how you view it and how you look at it. I'm sure, again, as you were saying, his affordances got to the point where it started to shift and it was being pushed down a negative path.
Yeah.
But did he have to make those choices? Probably not. It probably just gets harder at that level that you and I are not at.
Yeah,
right? But it probably gets harder to make right decisions at that level.
Yeah, I'd add on to that is that even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you're managing people, from my experiences, as people work their way up, I think they see inefficiencies in the rules and the enforcement of them. And so they try and cut corners and they try and, take the easy way. At the beginning of entrepreneurship, you want to do everything right. You want to be the best that you can be. And throughout that journey, it's like really valuable in terms of personal development. But I see that, I've worked for big companies and with managers that, maybe didn't manage fairly or maybe, said things that were not appropriate. Look, the way I kind of look at it is a game of basketball, you get 6 fouls in the NBA, right? And people take their fouls, right? They want the refs to say, call a foul on them. Yeah. If there is no one calling a foul on you, what's stopping you from fouling in the business world? And I think that that's where a lot of the really, aggressive entrepreneurs and maybe managers, they want to foul because there's no one calling a foul on them. They can wrong somebody and that benefits them, and then they don't have to
so
answer to anyone.
There's not a level of accountability. Like if you're the one that's policing accountability, it's easy to ignore it's hard to self-police yourself, basically.
It's hard to self-police yourself, but I really feel that at the beginning of entrepreneurship, everyone goes into, at least I'm going into it with a do-good mentality, and that's what people need to trust me by. It's these big, God, I sound like such a millennial, but big corporations, right, that are just these behemoths and they're chasing numbers and they've got their boss pressuring them, their boss is pressuring them, and then stockholders are pressuring them. They've got to throw fouls and they've got to do something to make those numbers because that's their whole world.
Yeah.
For me, it's not like that. It's about doing good in this world, and that's why I feel that the beginning of the journey is often so good for you. So anyone that's considering entrepreneurship, try it. Do something based on your heart, and you will become a much better version of yourself because you're pursuing a genuinely good idea.
So then the hard part is maintaining that kind of altruistic attitude as you're pushing through.
Oh, for sure.
But I think, and maybe you agree or not, that that's kind of a key to not the key to long-term success, but a key to long-term success and happiness as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
It's like as soon as you flip over from that altruistic attitude, then maybe you look back a few years later and you're like, what happened? Like, this isn't making me feel the way that it did when I first started, right?
Yeah, I think so. And a lot of companies, try and do good. I mean, they might do bad or something on a day-to-day basis, but every once in a while they have a philanthropy or raise funds or something like that, and it kind of brings the balance. And you know what? I'm okay with that because there are some things that are just unfortunate that we've got to do, and that's just the way kind of the society works. So it is good to give back. But there's a lot of companies that really just try to do well. And I was speaking with a friend the other day about one of them. I had no idea. Starbucks, their baristas, if they're working over 20 hours, Starbucks will pay for college for them. Yep. That is really awesome. I mean, basically, you think about the flow of money there. You have, basically your doctors and lawyers going out and buying nice cups of coffee, or, I mean, not even doctors and lawyers, but that's how I like to think about it anyways. And I'm sure Starbucks management would want me to think about it that way too. Yeah. Doctors and lawyers buying really expensive coffee, and then those profits going back and investing in its employees. I think that that's a really cool idea. Yeah. And, maybe there's shady business practices somewhere around Starbucks I don't know about, but that is just way cool for the management of that company to say, there's an opportunity for us to do really good here. And I'm sure there's a business reason for it, but they are paying out money to their employees by investing in them. I think that should be commended. And that's a really cool scenario where a large company is trying to do good on society, and I've got to commend him for it.
Yeah, and I think CEO's name is Howard Schultz. Is that
yeah,
right? Yeah. So I think that mission and attitude actually, and those values stemmed from his childhood. So that's really cool to me to see that. I think I'm going to butcher the story, but him growing up, like it was somebody in his family, father, mother, somebody was working and like lost their health care, lost something along those lines. And again, I'm butchering the story like crazy, but he held that value with him, that experience of, this is something that everyone should, have access to. And that's what he wanted to create and instill in his company. And I think stories like that are very heartwarming, right? And they give you a lot of like pride in kind of the entrepreneurship or these corporations who are able to keep those values instilled as they continue to grow, as Starbucks did.
Yep.
All right, shifting gears a little bit. You started a business before Senior Advisors Plus.
That's right.
Tell me about it.
It was called Senior Retirement Lifestyles.
Okay.
It's a very similar concept. I had a business partner at the time, and we were going to try to create a referral agency to help his dad fill in a community that he owned. Mm-hmm. And we met several years ago and reconnected during my last 2 jobs ago as an investment analyst. And we're thinking about putting together this idea to help his dad fill a community. And when we got into it, man, it was insane. I mean, like, just to have a business idea is great, but then all the paperwork and the state filings and we went about it in a crazy way. I mean, we were like way overhead. We tried to create this Series LLC with all these subsidiaries. He was gonna operate out of one. I was gonna operate out of the other. That was gonna mitigate our risk of anything happening, so that if he did something wrong, the bank couldn't come after my assets, and if I did something wrong, the bank couldn't come after his. The banks wouldn't even open up a bank account for us. They were like, "This just smells bad." And I mean, look, I won't name the bank, but I was kind of ticked off about it because, like, look, in Illinois, they have this thing called a Series LLC. Like, I should be able to have a bank account. But it was so frustrating. And then, I had a sort of a falling out with my business partner where he was great ideas guy, but I needed somebody to like pull his weight and operate that series that I was hoping that he would take ownership for.
Yeah.
And it really didn't work out. It was causing me a lot of stress. Maybe a lot of it was in my head. I don't really know. Well, actually now I do, because I feel very happy with what's going on in the business. So really the only thing that's changed is like a partnership. After a while I had to break that business, and we had this operating agreement and everything, and the only way to really do that was to withdraw all the funds from the bank account, which ceased the operating agreement, which basically allowed me to open up another business and do the same thing. All the funds were mine. I didn't like snake them or anything like that. I was putting in all the energy. The fact that I had the power to do all that stuff, I wasn't really scamming them out of anything. It did really stink though that I had to end that, because one thing in my life that has been unfortunate is that I've gone through a lot of relationships quickly, and that was just a reminder that I hadn't evolved yet from that sort of, I guess, trend.
Yeah.
And I tried to hold on to it for as long as I could, but there came a point when I was like, it's really just killing me. Like, I was having health issues and things of that nature. And so I was like, look, this was a great idea. He was the one that really kind of started it. He was the one that proposed, like, why don't we market my dad's community? So I really wanted to like give all I could, but I don't know if it was that I like made his head too big, that he didn't feel the need to actually work on the business or what, but I just wasn't getting anything out of him. And I thought about, what if this thing became like wildly successful? How would I feel like having done all the work and then just have a business partner kind of ride along? So yeah, I had to end it, and I started a new company, Senior Advisors Plus. We do something similar. We have a little bit more options now. The analysis that we do is a lot more than what we did at the old company. I think our logo is way better. And look, I think that the concept that we started was great, but I was really putting in all the ideas, and Senior Advisors Plus is a continuation of those ideas. I'm sure both companies would have looked very similar had I stayed with it, except you would have been talking to a lot unhappier Tim than just,
So then what lessons did you take away from the first business that started and didn't go the way you thought to starting Senior Advisors Plus?
Yeah, the lessons was, from a legal perspective, keeping it simple. I really tried to do, starting out, you try and do everything right. You try and mitigate your risk. And I think the Series LLC was a cool idea, but it was just too complicated. It was over my head. It was over my bank's head. I really didn't see that process all the way through. Mm-hmm. I think I could have done a little bit more diligence on the business model and what I'm getting in. But the biggest thing, man, is, choosing a business partner. Yeah. There are certain personalities that would be great. I mean, I could think of like a few personalities that I would just really love to have as a business partner right now. He was a good one. My last business partner, he was a good one, but he didn't have, like I said, the drive to do what I needed him to do. Yeah. What I learned is take it slow with a business partner and don't be afraid to say no. Yeah. But at the same time, it's hard to know what you want when you've never tried it before. Right. After him, I came up to a guy that I thought would be a really good potential business partner. He was an RN. He was older. He had no kids, and like worked in the industry.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, like maybe I could bring him on to Senior Advisors Plus. And I started just talking to him, no pressure. And I just started like, would you be like kind of interested in like
some
this?
Feelers out.
Yeah, just kind of interested in this idea. And I didn't get a strong inclination that he was interested.
Yeah.
I thought he would be great. He was really talkative. He was really engaging, a lot more than like he just brought a lot of energy to the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And because he didn't want it, I didn't force it to him. The last business partner, I kind of forced it. Like I wanted to, like I said, I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
The last guy, I forced it. I wanted him to be something that he's not. And forcing anyone to do anything in the long run, you're going to see that play out poorly if it's not a good fit. So, yeah, patient approach, talking to business partners to make sure that you're on the same trajectory.
Yeah, I always view business partners as like a marriage, right?
Yeah.
You know, you got to go through the dating phase, and you know what it ends up being is, you know, I think it goes back to the entrepreneurship changing you. It's like you're going to be changing as an individual as you go through this journey, and when you're married, you're growing as well, and you have to be able to grow. Like the biggest thing isn't that you find this most compatible person; you find people who are willing to grow with you as the business changes and you
That's
change,
a good point.
right? And so that's kind of you know, that trust and that ability to change and know that things are going to be changing is incredibly important for a business partner.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah. All right, so then let's move a little bit into Senior Advisors Plus. So tell me about some of the big wins that you guys have had up to this point in your young journey.
Yeah, I think that we've established a couple relationships that have been very strong. And I've gotten a few people to take a chance on me in terms of referring me clienteles. We've signed on a couple home care agencies that are willing to refer to us. And that is like, I'm really excited about. I mean, I think that the typical progression for someone who's aging is that they want to age in place. And then there becomes a time when their home is no longer safe, or they are looking for something more affordable than 24/7 care. So we want to be that next logical step that people go to after they've lived in their home, but are looking to move to somewhere else. That's where we want to go. So I think that that's one of our biggest wins. Another thing is really creating an online presence. This has been our biggest win so far, and really just word of mouth, talking to people at conferences, talking to people like yourself, and really designing a website that Google likes. We've done things, I don't really know what the winning strategy is with this, but we've just sort of done everything that people have told us. And like,
just throw a bunch of spaghetti against the wall.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And we are popping up on the assisted living DC search in Google.
Nice.
And I'm really proud of that. I think that the last thing that I did that may have broke the camel's back is I indexed what Google labeled us as. Before we were a healthcare consultant. Now we're considered an assisted living facility from Google standards. So I think that helped us a lot. Another thing that we did is we went through our website and changed the name of the pictures to like assisted living 2. We also did things such as changing the name of the pictures as we save them.
Okay.
So that when you upload it to the site, there's that, like, I guess, background name there that maybe Google alt tag or something that Google may read, something along those lines. So we're really, really pleased with showing up on that page. Now, I don't know if that's going to be the winning strategy, but in the past couple of days, we've gotten a call from Google, and we don't pay for Google Ads. So I think that that's outstanding.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we're really, really pleased with that. The last thing that I'd say is getting credentialed to visit hospitals, being able to walk in the hospitals and call on them and be able to help patients that need respite care after the hospital. You know, they may not be able to go back home and really care for themselves. So they might go to a senior living community and hang out there for a month or two. So to be able to call on hospitals and get that clientele is pretty cool. So what you're seeing is we've got a real portfolio approach to getting clients, and a lot of these channels are still in infancy, but you can see like how they're going to mature. At least I feel like they're going to mature in the next, couple months. So pretty excited about that.
And so, at being kind of young in this journey, and you think, do you think that the strategy of just trying a bunch of different things is a takeaway for somebody who's just getting into it, maybe is a little bit behind you?
Yeah, I think it's so important to talk to people. We've been talking to like a whole portfolio of people.
Awesome.
Anywhere from like home care companies to downsizers to estate planners to lawyers to estate liquidators, a really whole gamut of people. I mean, I've got this image of the supply chain of like how someone moves through the system in my head.
Yeah.
And so I am trying a lot of things, but they are from they are educated guesses.
Of course.
So I think that it's really important for people to just talk to somebody. And I don't know. I can't speak for anyone else, but I just feel that I have an advantage when I talk to people, not because I'm interesting to talk to, but because I'm young, and I think people are really excited about like what a young entrepreneur is doing.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, I'll have a conversation with that guy, even if it doesn't lead to anything. So I don't know if this is like a Sid Hartha thing, but it just feels like the whole universe is really helping me get to where I want to go. And it's been really nice. And that is not going to happen unless you get out there and talk to people. And that's what I found in my research career too. Look, it's all about organizing the numbers, but there's a shortcut into, not a shortcut in terms of taking the easy way, but a shortcut in terms of expediting where you want to go by talking to somebody, because someone's done it before you. Like, we call ourselves entrepreneurs. There's one idea of the whole business that is new that constitutes entrepreneurship, but this path to entrepreneurship, a lot of people have done like what I've done before, and they've shared like with me how they think what path they think I should take.
Awesome. All right. Yeah. So we've talked about the big wins for Senior Advisors Plus. Let's talk about some of the mistakes.
Yeah.
What are the mistakes that you have made up to this point in your journey?
Well, we wanted to be a company that did good. We didn't think that we would have any chance at getting people to view us from online or to find us online. So we thought that we were going to have to network with social workers and discharge planners, which is part of the strategy that we're pursuing now. And when we first started, we thought, well, how could we be the most genuine firm out there? And we thought, well, we want to be able to refer to any provider. And because social workers, they know that when they refer to places like our competitors, like a Place for Mom, they are limited to who they can refer to, Place for Mom, because they only refer to the people they have contracts with. And we wanted to try and differentiate ourselves from them. So we created this model where we were going to act as a broker that negotiates on the client's behalf a lower out-of-pocket cost that they pay, and that they only pay us when we achieve savings for them. And they would pay us based on a percentage of the savings that we achieve.
Okay.
So there are some business models out there like that, but it's usually between two very sophisticated parties. And that business model, while it does open up the possibility of referring all these different communities and providers, it's limited. It's limiting because the clients that we work with are hesitant because they don't know what they're going to pay. So we've really marketed that business model for about a year and a half, and we didn't have a whole lot of success with it. I think that people that we were networking with and trying to get referrals from understood, what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't enough because clients didn't appreciate, the ambiguity of what they were going to pay us. So I'd say that was one of our biggest mistakes going forward. I guess maybe in some way it's a blessing because, it really signaled to the market what we're trying to do. It kind of created a brand in the sense that like, hey, we're trying to work in the best interest of the clients. Mm-hmm. Like while this model isn't perfect, it is a way of doing that, but the market just didn't really give us good feedback with that, so we had to change it.
Do you think experiences like that make you guys seem to come at it from like an analytical point of view, right?
Yeah.
And so, but as you're probably aware, it's like the market speaks and the market is very emotional.
That's right.
And so, do you think that helped you guys develop this more like emotional, in tune, customer client first attitude?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail. I mean, I think you hit the head on the nail. I think you hit the nail on the head.
There it is.
I think, so you hit the nail on the head there because we were coming at it from a very analytical standpoint. The market just wants a quick and dirty way of helping them solve a problem. And for them to be able to pay us this, ambiguous amount was really kind of frightening for them. I think that it sort of changed my mentality of how I approach people. I mean, look, I talked to a lot of intelligent social workers that were like, this is a really cool model, but we just didn't get the referrals. So whether they were not passing our name along because they didn't really trust the system, mm-hmm. Or their clients weren't really understanding of what was going on, but regardless, like we weren't getting the feedback that we wanted. So while we did hear that, wow, that's a cool idea, the market spoke, and we had to change our mentality to say to this more emotional type marketing platform.
I love that experience and I love that lesson because I think part of starting a new business, being an entrepreneur, is like you think your idea is like the fucking best, right?
Yeah.
And then and a lot of times you're like, oh, well, if they didn't like it, they're an idiot, whatever. But there takes a level of humility of understanding, like, it all comes down to the market. The market is what matters. And the more attuned you can get with the market, the better you're going to be, and you'll be able to pivot faster and accomplish things.
That's
and
right.
create things that actually matter. So I think that was a great, even though it was a mistake, right? Learning from mistakes, like I think that's a big deal for you guys in coming to that conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we had to support that business model for a little while, but we also had to get the reps out there and get our name out there and advertise it to sort of play that experiment out.
Yep.
And then really just be honest with ourselves and say it's not really working. I think that somebody that's leading a company or that has done this for a while may have had more of a systematic approach to rolling something out like that, such as like, I'm going to try this idea for 6 months. I'm going to walk in someone's office for 20 times a week. Mm-hmm. I'm going to call other people 30 times a week, and I'm just going to see how that process plays out for 6 months, reevaluate. If it doesn't work, then we're going to do this. If it does work, then we're going to do this. I think that that's the way some of the better entrepreneurs and business leaders work. I didn't do that with this way of, I guess, testing this marketing strategy. I think in the future, I am doing things like that. Like I'm testing ideas and putting a time limit on them and sort of reevaluating when the time comes. So I think that that's kind of the overall lesson that I learned from that, because when you're running a business, you've got to measure stuff. I mean, otherwise you're just kind of lost in doing it by feel. I mean, I think that a lot of people get inspiration by feel, but you need to be able to test. I mean, I think that you need to be able to test it, and doing it just by gut feeling is, look, one of the most beneficial things that happened to me early on in my entrepreneurship is I decided to run a marathon. And to train for it, it's very systematic. Like, I've always considered myself a good athlete, and I've always just said, I'm a good athlete. But when I started to run a marathon, there was like benchmarking, there was a system to it, there was a test at the end, and there was either the goal was realized or wasn't realized. And the consistency that you've got to be able to put into your training program takes a lot of discipline. And if I ran based on my gut feeling, I would not have become a better athlete from that, because I would want to take the day off, or I'd say, man, it's just going to make me unhappy. But once you get out there and you do it and you go run your training session, whatever it calls for, those results add up, and then you end up hitting the time that you wanted to run. Same thing with business. Like, if you do it by feel, it's so easy to just slack off and not hit your numbers. But when you break it down and systematically create an approach to pursuing an idea, I think the development is a lot stronger.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've always had this view of, to be successful as a business owner, entrepreneur, you either have to kind of get to market first, or like ride the wave of, let's say, like Google Ads or SEO back in the day, like where if you just showed up, attention was so underpriced that you could just ride that wave, right? But in times like right now, where there isn't really that one place, it's like being that systematic, reproducible process is what gets you successful. And I'm super enamored with figuring out what that process is, right?
Yeah.
Uncovering it. And it's kind of one of my motivations for doing interviews and stuff like this, right?
Yeah.
Is I get to learn stuff as well and see. And so it's really cool that you've kind of stumbled across it. Like, hey, this is about, we did the whole throw stuff against the wall. Now let's try a little bit more rigorous, disciplined process to test and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And I think that's the way the world works. I mean, I think that we're all about data and analytics now. You've got to be able to have data, you've got to be able to measure it, and you've got to be able to benchmark yourself. So even a small shop like me, there's things that we take a look at. I mean, I say we, but it's really just me, but that I take a look at in terms of how many places I'm visiting each week, how many calls I'm making, things of that nature.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what are some of the decisions that you have made that at the time you were like, this is a really big fucking deal, and then it turned out not to be a big deal at all?
Yeah, changing the business model.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really wedded to this idea of being able to negotiate on someone's behalf and lower their out-of-pocket costs. And there's an aspect of the business that we still do that. But to bring in this other business model where, the providers pay us for the referral, I was so against that at first because it was limiting who we can refer to. And to change it that way, I felt, well, I just told all these people that that's the business model you don't want to use. Yeah. And so then I started to use it, and I thought, well, people are going to think that I'm incompetent or that don't know what I'm doing, or just trying to throw spaghetti against the wall. And maybe in a sense I was trying to throw spaghetti against the wall, but no one cares. Like, it's like there's so many people out there. I mean, we're in DC right now, and there's just so many businesses out there that you can test your idea on some of them, and then you can retest this new idea on others. And to be in a market like this, it's so great because you can change things, and I've updated people that I've spoken with previously about the new business model, and actually I've signed some of them on with the business, so it's been really great. But then talking to new people, you get sort of a different reaction. They take you a little bit more seriously. You can kind of read it. But at first I just thought, wow, like all the people that I've just told about this, they're just really going to think I'm incompetent. It hasn't been the case. Anytime you need to change, I'd recommend doing it. I mean, look, we just talked about the test, retest, and have deadlines and stuff. But at the other token, like, if you've got something that you can do better, such as like, I don't know, posting on social media or just something that you can add during your routine, you don't have to wait to the new year to make your New Year's resolution
Yeah.
to be able to change your attitude. You can change it right then. So just learning about not being afraid to change, not being able to double back. It's okay.
People are more forgiving than you give them credit for.
That's right.
And a lot of it, I think, is just based on insecurity, right?
That's right.
And if you can get past that, then you're like, oh yeah, it's really not a big deal.
It's not a big deal at all.
Right. Awesome. So let's see what else I got on here. So what do you think is common knowledge when starting a business, but could really just be ignored? Right.
Common knowledge, but could be ignored. I really don't have a great answer for that.
Okay.
Actually, right now. I mean, I think that we all try and do things that that lead to our success, and we wouldn't do them if we didn't think it would work. I think what a lot of people maybe fail to do is they don't start a business soon enough. Okay. They don't decide to start a business when they're working for somebody else. I think that they could really just benefit from learning to set up an LLC, learning to get their contracts in place, writing like legal agreements, or just really establishing the nuts and bolts of a business. They don't have to go out on their own full time to do that. I think that a lot of people are wedded to their money too much. Mm-hmm. And so when they're young, not being afraid to maybe take out $500 to open up an LLC or buy a business license. I think that as soon as you start giving money to the idea, it starts giving back. It's like paying for a personal trainer. Yeah. Almost like pay for a personal trainer. You're like, I'm going to listen to this guy. He's telling me I need to eat, or she's telling me I need to eat, or he's telling me to do these types of crunches 5 times a week. I'm going to do it. Because it's sort of that you're wedded to the idea, even though it's a fallacy that, sunk costs, everything moving forward, you should just evaluate based on what's ahead of you. But if you have a little skin in the game, it does add a little bit of risk to the table. So I think that that's a good idea. But getting people to spend money and open up their business, I think is a good starting place.
Yeah, so I think that's a good actually answer that you ended up coming back to, right? It's that you don't need to go all in full time from the jump. Yeah. Right. I think a lot of people have that assumption. It's like you can have a side business, take a little money, and just run that concurrently with your full-time gig, nights, weekends, whatever, to put some feelers out there. Yep. And I think also you hit on it maybe indirectly, but this, your thoughts on just, you don't need a ton of startup capital, right? No. You just need a little bit to get started. And a lot of people will use that as an excuse, I think. Yeah. I think one of the best things that I've done since I've started a business is started blogging. Like a lot of people will tell you that you should blog and you should optimize it with SEO. And I think, I think that there is a place for that. I've really started my blog out because my business is different, sort of, from what I was doing before. I've used the chance to blog to really hone in my skills and to learn the industry. And I think that I'm sort of doing research projects on a bi-weekly basis, and my output is my blog. I think that that's really good content. Awesome. I don't know if I have a lot of people read my blogs. I post them on LinkedIn and things of that nature. But to me, it's a way of building up a database. And I think it's served me really well because I'm staying on top of trends. I'm staying on top of changes within the industry. And when I go and talk to people, I oftentimes cite my blogs. Not like, hey, you should read my blog. It's more like using the knowledge that I got from writing the blog. And then that makes me appear as an expert. And then, people are more comfortable with doing business with me. So I think that that's been really, really powerful. So having this kind of I like this approach of having dual purposes with what you're doing, right? So if nobody ever reads your blog, right, the fact that you're doing it, you're still getting something pretty powerful out of it. You're educating yourself, solidifying knowledge that you're able to use later. So it's kind of like, God forbid nobody ever reads your blog, and you obviously want it to be successful, but you're still getting something out of it. And I think that's important too, is just to think about the things that you do and try to determine ways that you can get additional value out of it. Versus if you just go in and say, the only way this is going to be successful as a blog is if people read it, right? Then you're going to be less likely to do it.
That's right. That's exactly right.
All right, awesome. What are you curious about right now? Business related or not business related?
It's good. I'm curious about doing talks.
Yeah.
Yep. That's where my focus is. I want to talk as much as possible. I'm organizing talks with libraries, senior centers, volunteer organizations, just telling people how the industry works. Basically, like all the different care options that are available, how you pay for it, the benefits of each. I think people need to know that. I mean, I think that the more they know about that stuff, the more they would be interested in using our services, or at least asking our opinion, because it is very complicated. And oftentimes we're helping people in a moment of crisis, which is unfortunate. But the fact that a lot of people aren't planning ahead is, well, I guess it's just a byproduct of being human. I mean, someone says, you need to change your tires. You may not change them for a long time. It's just a natural human instinct, I think, to put things off. But the talking aspect about it, one, educating people, and two, learning how to grab people's attention, I think is like really what I'm excited about right now.
Awesome.
Especially as it relates to developing business, but even more so growing as a person.
So what resources or, what are you looking at to make you a better public speaker?
Yeah. I think I never even thought that this would come from that, but I created my own podcast. And all I am is taking my blogs and just reading them. Not verbatim, but I'm basically creating an outline from these blogs and reading them. And I'm looking at Audacity, and it's free software that people can use to edit this stuff. And what you can see on this is you can see the cadence of your speech.
Okay.
And when I first started, I was very staccato. It was very like spacey, and I still probably speak a little bit like that now, but I could identify, really spacey words, or I would be identifying words such as like or and, where I would be enunciating them way more than what the important information was. So really kind of looking at it from a scientific kind
That's
of.
pretty cool. I've never thought to use the feedback from audio to improve your cadence of speaking.
It is really cool.
Yeah, that's a nice feedback loop right there.
I've only made 3 podcasts, but I've seen a tremendous improvement in what I'm doing so far. Yeah,
nice.
So
that's a nice little little tip, little tactic there.
It is.
I like that.
It's pretty cool.
Awesome.
And that add on that. I mean, that's what's so fun about exploring different stuff.
Yeah.
Is like I had no idea that was going to be a byproduct of really recording something on Audacity, but that's just what it became.
Right.
And that's why it's kind of fun to try different things. And then, the next day or when you're going to evaluate a plan, you think, what do I need to work on? And you say, well, I need to work on speech. Well, that's a way to do it. Like now I have that idea in my repertoire to be able to say, how am I going to work on speech? I'm going to start recording myself.
Awesome. I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So being cognizant of your time with this last, few minutes that we have, I'd love for you to go in depth, tell us a little bit more about Senior Advisors Plus, what differentiates you from the competition.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Well, I mean, I'm really excited about like what I'm doing with the company. And like I said, we used to have this model where the clients would pay us a portion of the savings we achieve for them, and we would negotiate and refer any provider. We're still doing that. The client pays us a flat fee. So we came up with that idea because, look, everyone's not sure. Like they want a simple idea.
Right.
They want to know what they're going to pay for. And so they pay us a flat fee, and then we do all that. They can choose that business model, or they can choose to work with our other business model, which is the referral segment. And what that does is the providers pay us for the referral, and we refer them to the providers that we have contracts with. So a client comes to us and they say, well, we want the best of the best, or we want your full suite of service. Then we would advise them to use our advisory service, in which they pay us the flat fee.
Yeah.
Or if they're looking for quick, they don't want to pay us anything, but they want something that just works well, they would use our referral service, and we can refer them to the providers that we have contracts with. Offering that dual model really is unique within this industry, because when someone comes to another one of our competitors, they're really forced to just use that other competitor's business model,
right,
because they don't really know how the industry works. At least, I mean, it doesn't appear that they do, because a lot of people misuse these types of services. I'd say that when making a decision like this, it's so important to look at the business model and how is that business incentivized. In the referral source, clients are really kind of a product.
right,
Whereas in the advisory service, we're serving in their fiduciary interests. Some clients, they prefer that. Some clients, they prefer this. So to be able to offer them both, something that we're really excited about.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. In a couple sentences, or I guess, what's your elevator pitch? Let's distill everything down you just said into 1 to 2 sentences.
Yep. So we help families create a care strategy, which often includes referring them to a caregiving agency or senior living community, and we help people determine the right care strategy based on their health, wealth, lifestyle, and preferred location. And so we will expedite the research process, help them understand their options, and then navigate the correct resources in the industry to use.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Anything else you want the audience to know?
Well, you can find me at senioradvisorsplus.com. Also at Plus Advisors on Twitter. We are active on Twitter. We do post a little bit to Facebook and also LinkedIn. You can find us at Senior Advisors Plus by searching those sites. But we're usually releasing content on our blog once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
And tweet, a couple times a day about diet, exercise, sometimes food recipes, just the whole gamut,
Sweet.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. This was awesome, Tim. Thank you so much for taking the time, man.
Thanks.
This was great.
Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next time.